Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome along to Data Platform Down Under. For today's session, we've got Armando Lacerda joining us from the US, who's going to take us from zero to hero on Microsoft Fabric Spark Compute. Now, this session is being recorded and will be made available on our YouTube channel once the session's completed and I have processed that. If you haven't already signed up to our YouTube channel, feel free to. Therefore, you get notifications of when we do add new content, but you're also able to see all of the previous sessions that we have got up there. I will put that link into the chat, so you will be able to go and have a look and sign up to that session. The session today, if you do have any questions, put them in the chat window. I will be keeping an eye on those. And if you can put a capital Q, just makes it easier for me to be able to know that it's a question that you want me to ask to Armando. So with that, I'll hand over to Armando, who's going to take us through what we need to know about Fabric on Spark Compute.
All right. Thank you for having me again with the group. I appreciate. Hello, everybody. My name is Armando Lacerda, and I just need 1 second to adjust something here from my end, and we'll get this going. One quick second here. Let me get this guy and this. And one more thing. There we go. And 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. All right. Cool. Let me change here let me share my screen first. Let me see. You go off. I'm still here, just the camera is off. And I'm clicking here on Teams, share, and share this. Oh boy. Oh, there you are. Perfect. All right, I'm back. Can you see me? Just thumbs up there, audio replies.
Yes.
All right, cool. Some people like to joke on me, they're like, Armando, the weatherman guy, he likes to be on TV and point things to on the screen. So Teams, I'm using the new version of Teams. It changed things a little bit in here, so I'm kind of still adjusting. The other day I was presenting, the people asked me to roll back because the resolution was not okay. So if you feel like the resolution is not working well, you let me know, all right? And I will reverse it back to regular Teams setup. But hopefully this will stick. I think we are good here. Oh, not this one, this one. There we go. So welcome to my session on Microsoft Fabric. A couple of introductions first. My name is Armando Lacerda. I am a Microsoft MVP, which means I've been awarded with this gift from Microsoft when we participate in user groups like this one here, and conferences and blogs. My website's kind of down. I had it on a platform, and I'm moving to a new platform, so the domain movement is kind of still working in the back end. So my website's still down. But yeah, but you can see many of my videos going around. I've been working with Microsoft data products for over 20 years, since SQL Server 6.5, and I've been contributing to the communities everywhere where I go. I'm originally from Brazil. I've been living here in the US for a few years, and I've been all over the world. Actually, I haven't been to Australia yet. You guys are on my to-do list. And I'm also a Microsoft certified trainer. The certification is not showing up in here, but I'm also a certified trainer, and which means that I've been training people on Microsoft technologies for a while, actually. I've been turning 28 years as an MCT this year, which is great. I have this passion about sharing knowledge and help people, have a hand on Microsoft platform technologies and all of that. With Fabric, particularly with Fabric, I've been working with Fabric before Fabric was available as a public preview. One of the perks of being awarded an MVP title is they notice you. Sometimes they call you, they invite you to participate on preview of Microsoft products, whatever they are cooking. And I was lucky enough to be selected, so I started working with Fabric, like almost a year before Fabric came into public. So I've been testing all of these things in Fabric for a very long time, and I'll be helping some companies, some private companies, is still not available here in the US for the public agencies yet. So some private companies to consider moving from whatever platform they are into Fabric. This particular session, I put this session together, and most of my sessions, they work like this, because when you go in and offer your services, I'm an independent consultant, and people, they invite you in, they want to know how the product works, how they can benefit from the product, and sometimes they're kind of like, I'm not sure if I'm be able to do what I need to do in Fabric. Can this work? Can that work? And this session came along from one of those business meetings that says, okay, let's make it more generic, and so I can present it publicly, and let's talk about the Spark engine. So the idea about Zero to Hero on the Spark engine came from one of these meetings where my customer, he was like, I have Databricks. We run a lot of notebooks in Databricks, and I want to know how this is going to help me to save on money on one side, and also integrate the whole thing, and all the things that people want to have when they migrate from one platform to another. And in a similar case, another customer was like, I'm already running on Synapse, but I'm running on the Azure, on the Synapse dedicated SQL pool, and I'm not really into Spark. So if I move this into Fabric, will I have the dedicated SQL pool there? And if not, how things are going to work? So from this experience with some of my customers, I put this one together. I hope it will be beneficial to you. All right. So let's move on in here. And if I click on the right spot, it may move. Let's go. Yeah. So I don't have that many slides there. I have a bunch of demos to go with you, but the agenda will be pretty much three topics, right? We're going to look into the Apache Spark into Microsoft Fabric, how it lives in there. We're going to look into the notebooks and how the notebooks will connect to the Spark pool, and of course, all of this will be showing you how to do it, right? How these things work inside Fabric. So let's take a look. So before we get there, I think one of the most important things we need to understand about Fabric is Fabric is a collection of services that were already there in Microsoft, in Azure, and in Microsoft 365. They were already there, but they were kind of disconnected. If you have been following as how Microsoft released their products, their data, particularly the data products, you remember there was the Azure SQL Data Warehouse by itself, and then there was Databricks on the other hand, and there is the storage account, and all of those things, they still exist in Azure. They're still there. But if you want them to work together, you have to stitch them together, right? You are the one to connect the cables, giving permission, giving security to each one of them. And the whole goal from Microsoft is to try to make an environment that would make this experience easier for the customers, for us, right? Make it easier in a sense that if everything is better integrated, people will spend less time configuring things around and more time producing things, right? Creating things that will actually generate value for the business. So that was the idea of Microsoft. With that idea in mind, Microsoft first released Microsoft Synapse back in 2019, right? So it's about 5 years ago. So the idea of Synapse was the first push on that direction. And it was a good idea. Synapse integrated a lot of things. We have the Spark with the SQL engine, with the serverless SQL pool that can work with the data lake. There is a lot of integration there in Spark. And just in case you're wondering, Microsoft Synapse will not go away because Fabric came along, right? It will stay around there. But along with Synapse, there is also this other Microsoft product called Power BI, and Power BI has a enormous adoption, right? People just love Power BI. I'm one of them. I love Power BI. And Power BI has this thing about being a software as a service because it is on the Microsoft 365 side of Microsoft's Azure. Oh, I rather say Microsoft's cloud. So it has this easier way to work because it's designed to be easier, not to be, get going and get something produced really quick, really fast. So during that time in between Synapse being released and people start working with Synapse and Power BI together, Microsoft start integrating these two guys together. So in a way, you may see some people here and there talking about Fabric as being Synapse 2.0 or the next Synapse the next generation. Actually, inside Fabric, you'll see many times you see some of the features inside Fabric being called Synapse something because it's some of the service, some of the ideas that came, they were already there in Synapse. Now they got integrated with everything else inside Fabric. So this slide here that I put together, it kind of summarizes the services we find inside Fabric, right? So this is everything that exists. I mean, not everything, but the major elements that exist inside Fabric. Power BI, of course, is there integrated with Fabric. So people nowadays, customers nowadays, they have the option to work with Fabric with the whole platform or just Power BI and forget about the rest of it if you don't want to use the rest of it, right? If you don't have demand for the rest of it. But if you do, you can use Power BI with everything else because Power BI is already part of Fabric. When Power BI came green a few months back, right? It was kind of the first showings, first effects of being integrated with Fabric. And then you get the data engineering, the data warehouse, all of the other features in there. Microsoft just recently released a series of videos called Learn Together, getting people kind of ready for the Fabric exam, the DP 600, which I have already taken, but I have taken the beta one, so I'm waiting for the results. You have to wait about like 2 months after they first release the exam, so that they can collect all the telemetry and wait the questions and all of that. So I'm still waiting for my results. But I think now next month in March it should come live. So if you want to get prepared, you can go and Google this Microsoft Learn Together series of videos. I'm in 2 of them. There were the Microsoft put out there was made live. So it's kind of fun where we go through each one of these guys here and a few others, right? There are a few others, they're not so major, so they don't show up in here. In this particular session, we'll be focusing on this guy here, right? On the data engineer. Sorry, sometimes it's hard to point this. On the data engineer. There we go, Armando. Easy. Boom. On the data engineer one. This particular icon is the icon they have selected to represent this aspect of Fabric, which is data engineering, which is working with data transformations from either ingesting or which usually doesn't require much transformations or zero. And then after ingestion, starting transforming it, normalizing it until we get to the dimensional model if we're going that direction, right? Usually is what Power BI likes to work with. So data engineering is the one we are really looking into, right? And data engineering in Fabric, it's all about Spark. So that's why it's so important in Fabric to really master, how we can get Spark working for us. And the good news is it was made way easier than it's used to be, but it's different. And I'm gonna highlight to you what are the differences in there when we get to the demos. All right. So yeah, so when you talk data engineer in Fabric, usually what's behind the scenes is the Spark engine. Now, in case you're not familiar with, the Spark engine was designed by Databricks. They first developed that one as a project inside Berkeley University here in Oakland. just down the road here, a few miles. And then they became a company, right? They started a company which is headquartered here in San Francisco, and they made most of their project open source. So Databricks is the source for Spark, which is now open sourced and hosted on the Apache Foundation. And a lot of companies, they both contribute to the project and they fork that project to their own platforms. Last time I checked, there were over 100 forks of the Spark engine. And a lot of companies out there, they're using the Spark engine on a particular fashion. Some cloud providers are specialized in offering just that. Microsoft did the same. They got a fork of the Spark project from Apache, and they plugged that in, made all the adjustments to work natively inside Azure. So in Azure, you have the option to work with Databricks and as a Spark engine of choice, or Synapse or Fabric. You have three options, right? Which one would you go? Well, we're here for Fabric, so of course we're going to take a look on Fabric here at this point. And as we go into the demos, we'll see how they differ from each other. So one of the topics we're going to go over here is this idea of the data, the pipelines and the data movement. When you were talking about data pipelines inside Fabric, like it was in Synapse, what is helping, what's actually running the code and, transfer the data from one end to another, from source to destination, is a Spark engine. So that's why it's important to understand how to manage this Spark feature inside Fabric. The same thing for the data flows, right? When we do data flows, is exactly, we don't see it, right? It's kind of just connected to it. The data flow is kind of transparent, really easy to implement it. But what makes the data flow work is a Spark engine behind the scenes. Now, just a side note in here, in Fabric, there is also a SQL engine. So if you're like me, like you're a SQL guy, I proud myself to consider myself a SQL guy because I've been working with SQL Server since 6.5. I still work with SQL Server today in version 2022, and helping some of my customers to deal with some of the elements there. Even though most of my work today is in the data engineering in the cloud side, but I still work with SQL now and then, and I really love working with SQL. SQL is available inside Fabric, right? And we can do some data engineering inside SQL, inside Fabric, using SQL technology as well. We will not see that here in this session. This session is about Spark. But keep in mind that there is a feature inside Synapse. Actually, let me go back inside Fabric. Let me go back a few slides in here, right? The one right behind me here, this one, data warehouse. This one is backed up by a SQL engine. So perhaps another day we can talk about that in a session here with you guys. But today is about Spark. Of course, here behind me, we have the notebooks and Spark job definitions. These are more identified with the Spark technology. I hear some people talking. Are there any questions there? No? All right, cool. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask the questions at any point, right? I'm gonna save some time at the end for Q&A. But if it's something is like, it's burning your brain, so just come out on a microphone. I'm not monitoring the chat, but if something is in your mind, please just speak up. All right, so this is another concept. It's kind of like I said, I'm not focusing this session on slide presentations much. I'm watching my time here. But there is a thing, for you to understand and manage Spark well inside Fabric, you have to understand these workloads that are over here. Oops, sorry. Over here, right? These workloads that are over here, and where the data is, and how they work together inside Fabric. Because in Fabric, these boxes here, they kind of point to the same thing. They point the same way to the icons I showed you before. So you have there the data engineering, the data warehouse, and the data integration. These are all workloads, or in a way code that you have and you want to execute. Perhaps you have written the code, or you just use the graphic user interface to build up the code. One way or the other, you got the code in there, right? And then you want to execute that code. Now, in order to execute the code is when Fabric starts becoming really different from the other two options you have. So let me demo that for you. Let me get there, and let's get to the computer and show you that. So let's get myself here smaller in the the corner here, and let's switch to Fabric. There we go. Here we have Fabric. And one of the reasons that I have those icons there on the first slide is because they show up over here when you go into Fabric. You see, when you browse to fabric.com, fabric.microsoft.com, you get right there. Give me 1 second. Let me bring up here a tool that I will need to do some zooming here as we move along. All right, so here we are. I got my Microsoft Fabric. And like I said, I have my workloads. I want to run my workloads. Data engineer is right here. So if I want to do some data engineering stuff, I can come in here and click on data engineering. And I have my options here for data engineering. This is what Microsoft considers inside Fabric the most common options that data engineers will be working with, right? The most common features that data engineers will be working with. This is also usually called a role, how you want to see Fabric. The whole Fabric is there. This is just the spotlight for what data engineers would see. So if I go here on the left side, in the bottom left side, I see here that data engineer is being selected. See, data engineer is being selected. If I'm Power BI guy, for instance, I can come in here and click on Power BI, and then I will have on the spotlight what would be more of interest of a Power BI person, someone that wants to work with the data models and create reports. And then I will see things that will be more related to that, which workspace I'm going to work with, which elements in the workspace, and so on. But the whole point is, this is Fabric, and all elements in Fabric are available to you at any time. Like if you click here on Create, for instance, you see, well, should be seen, and well, Lake House, yeah, there you go. There is a see all here. There we go. So now I can see the entire options, all the elements, all the assets I can come and create inside Fabric, even though I'm wearing the hat of a Power BI guy. So let's go back into Data Factory. Oh, I'm sorry, Data Engineering. Let's get into the data engineering and focus on the data engineering. So here's when my Fabric looks a lot like Power BI. So the Power BI folks around, they will identify with this. Like if I want to do some data engineering, more likely I want to create a notebook. So I'm going to come in here and say I want a notebook, and I want to create a new notebook. So it's like, okay, let's work with the notebook. I'm creating your notebook here. Here's your notebook. And the notebook's kind of ready here for me. But where is this notebook? This notebook, like the same idea that Fabric brought from Power BI, this notebook belongs to a workspace. So you cannot have anything inside Fabric if it is not into a workspace. And if I look into the left side here of my screen, I see that I'm connected to my personal, private, only accessible to me, my workspace. So everybody gets a my workspace inside Fabric, like you would get in Power BI. And the only person who can have access to your to the my workspace is you, because it's your private space. So this notebook here, it could be something interesting for me to just test some stuff, but usually that's not what I want. What I is a actual workspace, and then have the workbook in that workspace. So I'm going to create a workspace from empty here. So keep in mind, if you are going to run PySpark notebook and you need a Spark engine to support your notebook, right? To run your notebook, both things, the Spark pool and the notebook, both things will belong to a workspace. You have to be in a workspace. So here we go. We're gonna create one here. I have this weird name that I like to use, Kill Me, because later I can go, after presenting, I go around and say, whatever is Kill Me, I know was just for the presentation, I can go delete it. It's kind of a weird name. People told me already to come up with something new. I will someday, but not right now. Yeah, so I'm gonna create. Now, very important. If this workspace, if I'm creating this workspace here, oh, I'm sorry. Let's do it. Let's try that again. Workspace, new workspace. I pressed the escape button here by mistake. If I'm creating this workspace here, and my intent with this workspace is to run Fabric workload, not just Power BI workload, but Fabric workload, I need to back this workspace with some, here's the keyword, Fabric capacity. So if I look down here on the advanced, it's asking me, okay, you get a new workspace coming up. What are you going to use to support your workspace? Are you going to use your Pro license? Because I do have a Pro Power BI license, which would not be good for the notebook. Pro doesn't support notebook. Are you going to use the Premium per user license for Power BI, which is great for reports and all of that in Power BI, for Power BI workloads, but again, not for Fabric, not for workbooks and Spark, and therefore for the Spark engine. And the other ones that I have in here, they are disabled. Why are they disabled? Because I need a capacity associated with this thing available online. And that's how Microsoft makes money, is based on the capacity. So what is a Fabric capacity? A Fabric capacity is a collection of vCores, right? They have a particular measure I'm going to show you there. It's a collection of vCores and a memory ratio per vCore that is associated to your Fabric environment or your Fabric tenant, right? Not specific to your workspace. It can be to multiple workspaces, but overall to your Fabric tenant. So here's the moment where Microsoft will start billing, because you need to have a capacity. And in order to have a capacity, you have two options. If you are if a Power BI user, right? If you're already a Power BI subscriber from Microsoft, you can go Power BI Premium and use Power BI Premium to support Fabric. Microsoft does allow for that, so you can use Premium for that. Or you can use the actual Fabric capacity. And for that, you have to go into Azure to get that going for you. So let me get here into Azure just quick. Let's take a look there. portal.azure.com. I don't know what I had in there before. I had a bunch of things there. So I want to connect with this account. And it's coming up. Now, this account, I have a particular directory for Fabric to keep things apart from each other. So let me get there just quick. All right, here we are. So here in Azure, let me make this a little bigger so you guys can follow, right? We have all the things that exist in Azure. And within Azure, we have Fabric capacities. And as you can see, I have one capacity here. Let's go away. Not my first time here. I have a particular Fabric capacity already created in here. And as you can see, my Fabric capacity is an F8. And F8, I just have it there because I want to keep this environment working, get my storage there. I don't want to have my one lake to go away and all of that. So I kind of keep it there, and I keep it paused. You see, it's not running. If I want it to run, I have to hit this resume button here. So at this point, it's paused. What I need you, so the Fabric capacity is the compute power that will make everything inside Fabric able to work for me. While this thing is offline, nothing in Fabric will work for me. Or if I don't have this, nothing in Fabric will work for me, right? I have to have either this or Power BI Premium, not Premium per user, not Pro. It has to be Power BI Premium, one of the premium capacities, P1, P2, P3. Or here in Fabric, I have to have one of these Fabric capacities. So if I start, and this one here is called Fabric Lab. So if I resume this one here, let's go ahead and resume. It will resume as it, while we wait for it to resume, let me go back here to the slide deck and finish up this one here. All right, so it's resumed. I'm gonna go back in there. When it starts, you see these are the Fabric workloads, right, over here. And these workloads will be associated to a workspace always. You cannot create any of these workloads. You cannot create a notebook, for instance, without it belonging to a workspace, like I already said. And in order to run that workload, you need to have a Fabric capacity, as I just showed you, so we can create a Spark definition for your environment, so you can run whatever workload it is, in this case, the notebook. So it should be back up. All right, is already up there. So let's go back to my Fabric environment that was there before. This guy here, so right, it was disabled. Everything here was disabled. Let me do a quick refresh on this one. Reload. So let's try that again. Workspace, new workspace for this demo here. So cue me later. And if I go down here and scroll down, haha, look at that. Now I have Fabric available here for me. There you go, right? Fabric is available here for me. And I can choose to associate my workspace, this particular workspace I just created. Actually, let me rephrase it, because my workspace is something else, right? I have the option to associate this Kill Me Later workspace with Fabric. So then all the Fabric workloads will be available, including this Spark pool, which is not there yet. We're going to make one. So let's associate it with the Spark Fabric. And as you can see, I have one at this point, and it's right here, Fabric Lab, right? It's the one I just restarted in Azure, as you could see. So I'm going to go ahead and apply. So there we are. I have a new workspace. I have nothing on my workspace. I just created this workspace, and I could go ahead in here and create a notebook that will belong to that workspace. Got the notebook coming up in there. Here's my notebook, and here's the name for my notebook right here. I can rename this guy here. Kill Me Later notebook. So I can get this guy there, and it's created. Here's a link, a shortcut. The last things we have been working with in Fabric, they show up for you here. So if I go to my workspace here, I can see that I have my notebook I have just created, right, with nothing. It's empty. There's only one cell in there, but the notebook is there. All right. I hope everything's clear so far. And yeah, halfway through. Now let's get something else into perspective here. And again, if you have any questions, bring them up, all right? Now, I do have a place to write my notebook code. But where is my data? Where is the data? Well, if I go back to my slide here, you see that data is outside these workloads, right? Data is in this place called OneLake. In Fabric, let me go back here and switch to this one just quick. In Fabric, there is this concept of having one lake, one storage place for all your company's data. This is a bit different from Power BI, for instance, because in Power BI, you have a data set that has a data model connected to it. You have a data set, and that data set has the data, and the data belongs to a workspace. In Fabric, for our Spark pool to process data, our Spark pool and any code that's running on top of the Spark pool, in the case there's going to be a notebook, any code that's running on top of the Spark pool, it needs to have a window to OneLake. And that window to OneLake, a bridge, a connection to OneLake to see a subset of what is available in OneLake, it's another asset that exists inside the workspace called the lake house. So here I'm doing, speaking kind of slowly, very step by step, so we don't get confused. There is this thing called OneLake, which holds data for the entire company, right? You cannot have 2 lakes, 3 lakes. It's one lake for the whole thing. But whatever's in the lake, it is like a frozen lake, and then you pick a hole on the frozen lake. So only the things that are on that hole is what you can see from a workspace perspective. And the workspace perspective to the OneLake is the lake house. There is another thing called the data warehouse, which we'll not be discussing today. For today, we'll be looking into the lake house. So the lake house are the visible objects in the OneLake in a particular workspace. And if I want to process data, of course I want to, because I'm a data engineer, I'm creating a notebook and I want the Spark pool to work with the notebook, I need to have you got it, the lake house. I need to have a lake. I already have the OneLake, I need the lake house. So if I go back here to Fabric, exactly. If I go back here to Fabric, I can come here and create a lake house. And cue me lake house. I call this guy cue me lake house. And see, this one here doesn't like spaces. So in Fabric, you got these things. Some things they like, they are okay with spaces. Some things they're not okay with workspaces. Some other things they're not even okay with uppercase, lowercase. It has to be lowercase. So as you play with Fabric, if you forget about it, it will scream at your face. So here we are. And yeah, so in the OneLake, I can bring in files, like files I want to import inside the OneLake, or I can create pipelines to do data ingestion. But again, this is another topic, not a topic for tonight. We're gonna do actually for you in the afternoon, right? For today is tonight here for me in California. And once I bring the files in, I can create tables on top of those files. But the point is, now I have a lake house. And if I go back here to the workspace, let me see, here's my workspace. There we go. If I go back here to the workspace, now I can see I have my notebook that potentially has code to run queries on data that will be available inside the lake house. So I do have a semantic model on top of the lake house, and I do have a SQL endpoint that I can do SQL queries on top of this lake house, which is great. What I don't have is a cluster definition for my Spark to work on top of that data. I already have the notebook. I don't have the Spark definition yet. So now finally, we can go into Spark, which is going to be super simple because all the prerequisites, all the integration inside Fabric are in place. Now, I hope that at this point, you can see how easy this thing was, once you grasp the concepts, how easy this thing was to create an environment to do data engineering, right? I don't have to create a service, and then a workspace, and then a computing environment, and multiple computing environments. I have one compute environment, which is my capacity. So whatever charge I will have the charge for that capacity, whatever the capacity says. And then I'll be using the capacity here in the workspace. So I'm going to go here into the workspace, get in here, And here in the workspace, I will do, where is it? Somewhere in here, it's supposed to be, I am in the workspace. This is the workspace. Manage groups, Power BI setting, manage connections and gateways, embedded code. Huh. Demo gods, they always creep on you. Click on this guy. There we go. Workspace settings. Wrong click. All these months working this thing, I keep clicking the wrong one. And when I see settings, I always look into this guy here. But for the workspace in particular, is this 3 dots here, workspace settings. So here we are. So here in the workspace, you see we have a lot of more options than we used to have when it was just Power BI. And there is some Git integration, which is great. Some storage definitions where it goes. Azure connects us to external sources so it can bring data in. Topics for another day. For our particular topic of the day, we go here into data engineering and look what we find. The Spark settings. Now here in the Spark settings, the settings that we have available here will be limited by the capacity that's associated with this workspace. So notice that the number of nodes, let me zoom in here, the number of nodes on the default starter pool of my workspace, of my Fabric workspace, is limited to 2. Hey, hold on, this is too small, I need more. Because the amount of data I'm going to be working with, I need a few more nodes in this cluster than just 2. So if you do need more, you can come here and create a new pool. And of course, you're going to give that pool a name, Spark Pool. You can go and click here, name. There are no extra options in here yet, right? Like you get memory optimized, the only one we have. And nodes, I have small, medium, large, but they'll be limited by my capacity, which I'll be showing you. But the point is, they plan to extend this later, right? Node family, like we don't have GPUs on Fabric yet. So at some point in the future, we may have GPUs like we have in Databricks. So if you have a workload that depends on GPU processing because you're doing some sort of machine learning, model training, things like that, Fabric is not for you for that particular workload yet. But down here, when you go into the scale, you see, I can bring this thing here all the way up to 4 for auto scale if I want to do executors. If I want to scale it up to 4 nodes, it will be 1 driver and up to 3 executors. So Armando, you are, oh, actually it's cutting off a little. Let me do a little resizing here so you guys can see. There we go. Right? Let me get out of the way. There we go. So Armando, you are on 4, right? It's just 4 over here. Is the Spark limited to just 4? Is that the amount of nodes I can have on a cluster? And the answer here, you probably already know, right? If you think through it, you can imagine it. This Spark pool I'm creating is associated to my workspace. And whatever my workspace is capable of processing is associated with that capacity in Azure. So if my largest option, my highest number I can have in here is just 4, is because my capacity is limited to 4 cores or 8. 4 cores. F8 is half core for each one of them, so 4 cores is the maximum I can have. If I need to have more than that, let me save this one here. So I have this capacity, this work pool, this Spark pool in here. So if I need to have more than that, I need to go back to Azure, like I am right now. I need to go back to Azure here in the Fabric and create a new Spark pool. Fabric demos. Let's say this one is larger. Fabric capacity. And I'm gonna Oh, see, only lowercase. Larger fabric capacity. Now it should be more better with this guy. And I'm gonna keep, I don't know what that one was. I think it was here in West US. Let me double check that. Duplicate tab. Let's get back there. Let's see the one I want to have. Don't want to have any trouble just because I switched from one region, Azure region to another. So give me a second here. Let's go back to where I was. And here we are. Home fabric capacity. Where are you, baby? Yeah, West US 3. So let's go and create this one in the same place. West US 3 is what I have. And here is the point right here. In the capacity, see, I had the F8 before. It's what they call in fabric capacity units. So 8 capacity units, which relates to every 2 capacity units relates to 1 gig core. That's why I have a limit of 4 nodes there in the Spark pool. So this one here would give me 64 capacity units, which means my Spark pool I would be able to create a Spark pool with up to 32 nodes, 1 driver, 31 workers. So let's have fun with that one here. I just need to make sure I come back here later and delete this thing. Because again, this is where Microsoft makes money, right? You're paying for this. When you use Fabric, this is what you pay for, right? For the capacity. So let's go ahead and create this guy. And it's creating it. And while it creates it, let me go ahead and show you the last slides on this one here and wrap this up in terms of slides and finish up with the last demos. Yeah, so the whole life cycle, once you get your workspace connected to the right capacity, and then you create your Spark pool elements or definitions for the workloads you're going to have on that particular workspace, the next thing is just having fun doing data engineering, right? It's the delivering data of the data engineering. So you do have the data engineer that would work with the notebook and doing the Spark, having the Spark to support the notebook. So all the definitions of that notebook, you want to have that connected to a Git repo, which for now Fabric connects only with Azure DevOps. So we have Azure DevOps Git repos, and you can connect to that to save your code in there and have code versioning and all of the stuff. There is more things to come on that one. There is, in terms of CI/CD, there is still some things pending in there, but they're coming. Again, our notebooks, they work with the data that's available through the workspace in the right in the lake house in the workspace. So the notebooks work with that data. And if you have data scientists in the group, right, if you're doing machine learning, doing their notebooks, it's the same idea. They have the exactly same workload. They keep working with the lake house. Both teams, if they are in the same workspace, it's kind of easier because they're seeing the same lake house or all the lake houses that are in there. If they are in distinct workspaces, for whatever reason, perhaps, the workspace supporting the data engineer team it has a different capacity plan than the data scientist one. So you can manage, you can manage budget on that way, right? By defining what capacity is associated to each one of the workspaces. So each department or each project pays for whatever compute they're using Fabric, but all integrated, it's just a matter of defining which capacity, like I just demoed to you. And as the data becomes available, our Power BI people can work with the semantic model that you have already seen in the workspace in there. They can either work with the semantic model or with the SQL endpoint to query the data there. Either one, there are two different things. They can query the data there into from Power BI and do the reports. Now, when it comes to Power BI, when it comes to this, Spark is not involved, right? Power BI is a different beast. It's part of Fabric, right? It's fully integrated. You will see all the data that's available there through the workspace, because your report in Power BI will also be part of the same workspace. So all the semantic models that are there, you just tap on the data, start working with the data, in whatever style you decide to do, import or direct query or direct lake, whatever way you want to do. But in Power BI, when it processes the data there, it's not using the Spark engine, right? It's using Power BI, Power BIs. So that's the whole thing together. Okay. Back in here, this should be already done. There we go. I have my resource created. So larger fabric capacity. There we go. If I go back to fabric, let me go back here. Oh, I don't need this window anymore. Let me go back here to fabric, which should be here somewhere. Sometimes just goes away. Let me see this one. Yes. So here's fabric, right? Yeah, so this one is already created. Now, if I want to work with the other one, again, I have to come in here into my workspace settings when I come here into data engineering. Let me see, premium. Yeah, sorry. Here on the premium, right here on the fabric elements, I had it associated to that capacity, the original one I had there before. So now I want to get rhythm of this guy. This is associated with that one. It doesn't want to go away. So let me go into premium and apply. Yep, remove from premium. And now let's go back to fabric. It can't see the other one. Refresh. Let's do a refresh here just quick. Try that again. Workspace settings, premium. And fabric lab is what I had before. There we go, larger capacity right there. So now I can associate it back to the larger capacity. Now I'm the new one I just created, right? Which means that if I go here to the data engineering and the Spark settings, I can work with one of the pools I have already created, like this one here, the accumulator. I'm gonna edit this guy here, and now I can have more workers. Now I can have more nodes, more workers, more executors in my Spark pool, because now my workspace is associated with a capacity with enough processing power to support more executors, right? More working nodes. So some people get a little confused about that because it's a different way of implementing this, and it is like that. Everything that's different sounds a little confusing at first when we first start looking at it. So it sounds a little bit confusing, but the bottom line is this. In a way, it does save money, and it's easier to support, right, and to manage than what we had before. Because if this was in Databricks, for instance, and I have Databricks and I have Power BI, I'm having to go into the Databricks and create the compute in Databricks and define the compute in Databricks for their particular workspace. Kind of a similar stuff, right? But isolated in Databricks, and multiple of them. So each one of them could be running parallel, and they would create, this is the point, they would create different chargers. So if I have, if I have two compute in there in my workspace, one with 4 CPUs and the other with 12 CPUs, and they run in parallel, they would be charged in parallel for those ones. If I'm using Fabric and I have the two Spark pools on the same way, I'm paying for the capacity that's in there. And if they run in parallel and they exceed the amount of cores in parallel as the capacity supports, there are some ways that Microsoft support the exceeding capacity by charging it on idle capacity utilization down in the future on your overall utilization. So it's a feature inside the Fabric called flattening, which we'll discuss some other day. But the bottom line is it makes it easier to associate these things and have one build capacity more predictable than have multiple possible build capacities, because you have multiple workspaces that each one of them would create a particular billing point. So this one, the one we have here behind me, this one, it does create an environment that's more manageable money-wise. All right, to wrap it up, let's see some extra things we have in here. Let me switch my scenario to this one here. Good. Let's save this guy. So now I can have up to 32 in there. Let's save it again. All right. Say changes saved, right? And if I go and pause my capacity in Azure, I don't lose this, but I'm unable to run anything, right? If I try to do anything from here, right? I'm just unable to run anything. And besides that, what we have here on the environment is what's the runtime for the Spark engine. And here, if you have some background with Spark engines, notice that only the 3 versions, right, the 3.3 and 3.4 are available of Spark. So if you have notebooks that were designed for older versions of Spark, or even older versions of the Delta library for Delta tables, Fabric is not for you, right? If your notebook is based that has some dependency on some older runtime Spark environments, then these ones that are showing you on the screen, don't try to move it to here, because you will have some unpredictable results sometimes. Sometimes it fails, sometimes it runs, but has a different results when it runs. It's super dangerous. So don't do it. Don't do it, right? For new workloads and new things you are creating, that's the way to go. And if you are coming from the Databricks, like I mentioned earlier, or Synapse, and you have notebooks that were created for 3.3, more likely, you should be okay migrating them into Fabric. There will be changes, especially on the OneLake side when you point to artifacts in the OneLake. So there will be changes in there, but overall the code will be fairly compatible. In terms of concurrency, you can define the high concurrency on and let Fabric run, do the flattening when needed. And if you have the need to load new libraries, like custom libraries to the workspace, you can also do that from the definition of the environment over here. Here, set well, this would be the default environment. Somewhere in here, I'm already running out of time, but somewhere in here, they do have an option there for you to load custom libraries as well. You can also do that. So with that said, you can go back to your notebook if you have created your notebook already. I don't have any. When I created this notebook, there was no lake house, so I can come here and set a lake house to be the source for my notebook. So it's an existing lake house, and I do have. You see, all these lake houses here, they are in my OneLake, but they belong to other workspaces, and I can see them because my account has permissions to everything. So that's why I can see them. But this is the one I actually created for this demo, right? Whatever data was in here, there is no data there. So just for the sake of the demo, I'm going to connect to a lake house that belongs to another workspace, but I do have permissions to query from the other workspace, so I'll be able to run my notebook on this workspace, tap into data that's in the OneLake through the definitions that exist in another lake. One copy of the data for everybody to work, as long as you have permissions, which makes it faster. I don't have to move data around, and more consistent, right? It's one copy of the data for everybody, which is great. So I'm gonna get this guy here, and I get some tables in there. They're already showing as tables. So I don't know, let's get posts. Get this guy here. What do I have in here? Nah, don't want to load. Let's do this. Let's make this thing here a Spark SQL. And let's do a select count star from DVO posts. Okay, my environment, my workspace, the workspace defaults, the one that I have created in there. We have seen that one there before. And let's go and run it. And it's running. It's warming up the Spark pool behind the scenes. And once it's going to take about 2 minutes to get that going. And then after that, we'll be good to go. And that's it. That's this is how you go from 0 to hero, because you set up the whole environment, you adjust the environment to the customer's needs, whatever compute capacity is required in there, whatever processing capacity is required in there. You have the notebook connect to the Spark pool and to the lake house where the data is coming from. Now here's just the meat of it, right? The fun of it, which would be creating your notebook and your codes inside the notebook, like your PySpark code. To do your data engineering, you already have your Spark elements created and good to go. One Spark definition for the entire workspace. For multiple workspaces, you have to do one by one for whatever workspace you have in there. If the workspaces are associated to the same capacity, they can, in order to control expenses and also to define, what's going to be the largest compute capacity for the workspace associated with the same capacity. Super cool stuff. And while we're waiting for that, are there any questions? I hope there are. So give me your questions. What are your questions?
Not just yet in the chat, but as Armando has said, feel free. This is the perfect opportunity to ask those questions and get those answers that you're looking for. So you can either put them in the chat, you can raise your hand, and you're then able to ask Armando your question personally. So
yes, please let them come.
So while we are waiting, Armando, you connected in the notebook, which is still running behind you. You connected that and you put in that statement. You said run, and you said that this will take a couple of minutes. Normally, is the time for that to spin up going to be dependent on the resources that you've allocated to the compute resources? Is that going to vary the startup time?
No, not really. I mean, if the Spark pool requires, whatever code you have there, if it requires 10 nodes and the capacity supports the 10 nodes, it will warm up the nodes and get it going. So that can take a little while. Once the nodes are up, the next query will run a lot faster. But if for whatever reason you change from a capacity to a smaller capacity, and now the notebook that needs a larger capacity doesn't have enough nodes, it will just either go slower or just fail.
Okay. So we can see that took about 3 minutes. And as you can see, we've got that count. And as you were saying, if you were to run that again, that should be like super quick.
There we go. Yep, 10 seconds, 5 million rows. Yeah, 5 million rows there.
Excellent. So yes, it's all about just doing that prep work to start it up.
Yeah, there is a default pool that's always available. If you don't define one, a custom one, if you just use the default one that comes with the workspace, it's already warmed up. It's kind of small, but it's already warmed up. So when you run, it takes that time out of the bat. But when you create a particular pool definition, your particular custom one, it will take a few minutes to warm up, which is a little better than used to be in Synapse. It could take 3, 4, sometimes even 5 minutes. This one here has been pretty consistent, about 2 minutes.
Okay. So Jonas has asked a question. Apart from licensing and capacity, what else could be named as challenges to implement Fabric, for example, for business consultants?
I think the most challenging thing is understand and master Fabric, right? That's why it's important. That's why we do these sessions. And there's a lot of materials out there. Now, capacity has to do with money, right? Everything about capacity is about money, how much you're paying, what's the compute behind everything you do inside Fabric. So there is no much challengings. There's no much challenge inside capacity. Capacity is just that thing I showed you there, right? It's just going there, define your level, and it's available for you to associate with the workspaces. In terms of charges, while the capacity is running, you're being charged. Like if I keep the capacity running for the month, I will be charged $8,000, as you saw there on my screen. But if I go back there now and pause it, like I'm gonna do, I will be charged just for the time it was up, right? And for the amount of minutes it was up in there. So yeah, the challenge in terms of billing is just for how long a particular capacity has been up. Now, if you pause, you don't lose the lake, right? Whatever associated with the capacity in the lake. But if you delete the capacity, then you lose your data. Be careful with that.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Janice? And while feel free to respond in there. Does anybody else have any other questions at the moment for Armando? Ashok, I hope we answered your question without actually asking it, because we were able to show the difference on that execution from the nearly 3 minutes down to the 4 seconds. And yes, you've answered Janice's question. Perfect. So we've got Rita asking a question, hopefully, well, typing away. Now, just so that everybody is aware, this session has been recorded because we've got a question in the chat window about when it will be made available. Once this session's finished, I do have to process that, and then hopefully I'll be able to get the session up onto the YouTube channel later this week to make it available for you to come back and revisit everything that Armando has taken us through. Now, as Armando did show, Fabric covers a very wide range of components, and he's specifically talking to us about the compute with Spark. So, Armando, is there a platform to learn Fabric while my institution hasn't subscribed yet? So do we have any dev environments that we can sign up for, maybe for free, and do some playing?
Yes, a great question. And the answer is yes, but it's not that easy. So here's the thing. Let me go back here to this. And if I go back here and into the workspace and create a new workspace and go into advanced, let me type here some name. And here, trial. So if I select here, trial, this one will give me a, well, no, I should have been here in Fabric, and here there will be a trial. If I had the trial option here in Fabric, it would give me 60 days of a F64. So to your question, can I try Fabric for free? The answer is yes, you can. When you create a workspace in Fabric, there will be an option in there to make it the trial version of Fabric. And that one will give that, see over here, this one kind of has it. Trial, 59 days left. Actually, this one is already set by Fabric. Weird, because I'm paying for it. There's something weird in there. But so you can. But, and here's the catch. You can have a free Fabric capacity for 60 days to try. But in order to have that, you need to have a tenant, an Entra ID tenant. And that one, to get one for free for development, it is possible. There are, if you connect with me on LinkedIn and ask me this question there, I can give you the links. I don't have the links handy here right now. But you can request Microsoft a developer tenant, and they will give you one for free. And then you can have the tenant for free and fabric for free. Now, sometimes it's tough and it takes a while to get the tenant for free. Some people sign up for Entra, paid version of it, a P2, for instance, of Entra, just to have the tenant and then try fabric for free, which would be way cheaper than doing that. This second option that I just mentioned, this second option, which is create a tenant just for testing, is the recommended way. I tell everybody to go that way, because when you do that, your accounts on your enterprise, the company you work for, will not be associated with that. You're not going to disturb anything in your company. You don't need higher permission environments on your company security environment to start a trial version of Fabric. There are some settings you have to do in the tenant to do that 60-day trial as well. So the best way to try Fabric for free is to get a tenant. If you work your way through to get one for free from Microsoft for development, great. Otherwise, buy one and then you have 30 days to use it and then delete it later. And then start Fabric for free. And Fabric will be 60 days F64 for free. I hope that answered your question.
Now, to go along with that, at the start of the session, Armando mentioned about the certification, etc., for Fabric. I've put in the chat window a link to the Microsoft Fabric Learn Together, which I believe, Armando, you were one of the presenters on one of the sessions for this. Now, the beauty of this particular series of topics is that you've got very experienced people like Armando who work with Fabric, who are taking you on a journey, a learning journey, for you to be able to go through and follow along with them. Okay, and go through the practice questions or scenarios for you to be able to learn more about Fabric. So that's another good resource. I've put that in the chat window, and that was done over a number of weeks that you could have been part of live, but you're able to go back and follow along with those recordings.
Yeah, so the recordings are available, and also there is a second wave coming in a couple of months, probably. So if it realizes, there will be, keep tuned on the Microsoft website. They will let you know when the second wave rolls. And these are the links. This is one of the links I just mentioned to you to get a tenant for free, and then get Fabric for free. This one here is the one that's a little bit harder to get, to get approved from Microsoft. This one here is straight through, no big deal, as long as you have this. So if you want to take a screenshot, that's your chance.
Any other questions for Armando before we wrap up today's session? Feel free to put them in the chat window or put your hand up, raise your hand, and we'll be able to call you out. You can come off of mute. Okay.
It's on my bucket list to be there in Australia soon. I need to make that trip. Actually, my daughter wants to move there. She is in college here, studying zoology, and she already told me once I'm done with my college, I'm moving to Australia to work down there.
There you go. All right. So with that, a big thank you to Armando for your time in coming along and presenting to our group once again. Thank you to everybody who has come along and joined. I will be stopping this recording very shortly, and as mentioned, it will be made available on the Data Platform Downunder YouTube channel. So with that, I look forward to seeing you all again next month for our next session of All Things Data Platform. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a great pleasure to be with you. And again, keep the conversation going. If you have further questions, just connect with me on LinkedIn. It will be my pleasure. Thanks again for having me, Warnick. Appreciate it.